The Department of Public Health and Human Services is pleased to bring you Aging Horizons. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, fraud, legal issues, veterans benefits, and caregiving. Aging Horizons is a program dedicated to inform and prepare Montanans on these timely issues, making a difference to you and your loved ones. Here now is today's program host.
Hi everyone. Today on Aging Horizons, we're going to be talking about taxes because you know that time's coming around again. We have a couple of great guests from the Department of Revenue here with us today, Sanjay Talwani and Bryce Kotz, both folks who have been with us before and given us great information about doing our taxes and all the programs out there that can help us. So we have a lot of information. Stay tuned.
I want a drier form of transportation.
Well, I think we should fly, and that's why we made an appointment to get our Montana Real ID.
The MTRealID.gov website is easier to navigate than the river.
Look here, Captain Lewis. Smile, Captain Clark. Your paperwork is in order. Certified birth certificate, proof of residency, and social security card.
Not laminated.
Our first flight. Do you think this will fit in the overhead bin?
Go to MTRealID.gov.
It's that easy.
Montanans are independent. We're also responsible, protective, and committed to our families and communities. That's why we've done so well against COVID-19. As we open up, we've got to keep doing what we do best. And it starts with each and every one of us, protecting public health in the 406 for our families, friends, and neighbors. We all have to do our part. Montanans get that. And we've got this.
I was angry and upset when the doctor told me I have diabetes. I just didn't want to deal with it, the needles and the diet restrictions. But after I started to learn about it, those feelings changed. I was at risk for a heart attack caused by high blood sugar. That got my attention. I started watching my diet and making sure I got enough exercise every day. I want to be around for my grandkids, and now that I know what to do, it seems like a small price to pay.
Ask your doctor about diabetes education or visit montana211.org.
In 20 years at an electric utility, I've seen the hardships many of our neighbors face with high winter heating bills.
Ross Holter, Flathead Electric Co-op.
That's why I donate to Energy Share of Montana. I just hate the thought of senior citizens and young kids especially being cold in the winter. Donate to Energy Share. Help your neighbor stay warm.
To donate, call 888-779-7589 or go to EnergyShareMT.com. Energy Share, you can help your neighbor stay warm.
Hello everyone, welcome to Aging Horizons, brought to you by the Department of Public Health and Human Services. I'm your host, Kim Yeverman, and today we're going to be talking taxes. You know, that time comes around every year, and I don't know about you, but the guests we have today have made it a little easier for me in my own life. They have great information and really know what they're talking about when it comes to taxes. We first have Sanjay Talwani, and Sanjay is the the Public Information Officer at Department of Revenue. And we also have Bryce Kotz, who is a Program Support Unit Manager with the Department of Revenue. Welcome to you both. And Sanjay, let's start with you.
All right.
Okay. Let's talk about that individual income tax.
Well, it's almost tax season, as everyone knows. It is tax season. And one of the big things we have new this year is a real easy online tool that a lot of people will be able to file their income taxes right on our website, mtrevenue.gov. It's a new feature rolling out for the first full year this year. It's called Montana Quick File. And it's for people with some of your simpler taxes, people with a W-2 and dividend or interest payments, and that's it. Standard deductions, not claiming any credits except for the elderly homeowner and renter tax credit. We can talk about that more in a little bit. But it's a really easy thing that can take a lot of people with simple taxes, just a couple of minutes, free, right on our website, secure. And you know, every year we tell folks, we always tell folks you should file electronically versus filing on a paper form. It's just faster, more secure. And for folks who have maybe not done that through the years, this is a great opportunity to do it real quick and easy. You can even do it on a phone. I know a lot of people this past year have gotten a lot more familiar with computers and doing things remotely, whether they like it or not. And this is just one, a good time to make that switch from paper filing to e-filing. And the way people can get to it is they go to our website, mtrevenue.gov, and you can click and quickly get to a questionnaire about 7 or 8 questions to just say, are you taking a standard deduction or itemizing, a few things like that. And you just answer these questions and it'll tell you if you qualify to do it this way. And, started out last year mid-season. We kind of rolled it out gently. This is the first full year that it's out there. And I just think a lot of people are going to find that they can avoid downloading forms, avoid going and getting tax help maybe, and do it this way. And again, one of the best things about filing electronically is you get your refund faster. That's a pretty simple and good reason. Just on average, you're going to get it more quickly filing electronically than on paper. It's just easier at every step of the process. And so we encourage people to do that. And the way you'll find it is if you go to, again, our website is mtrevenue.gov, and it's a pretty good new tool.
That sounds great, Sanjay. I think, as you said, even if you don't really like it, we've all become more computer literate in the last year, and what a great way to just get those taxes done and get it into your bank account quickly if you're getting a refund.
Yeah, and another thing I'll mention about that is the one credit you can apply for using this tool is the elderly homeowner and renter tax credit. And a lot of folks use that. It's a refundable credit. The qualifications are pretty simple. You have to be 65 or over. You have to have been a full year resident last year. And 62 or older. You have to have a household income of under $45,000. You have to have lived in Montana at least 9 months of last year. And people have been filing this for electronically before. It's a credit that even if you don't owe any income tax at all, because you haven't made enough money to qualify to have to file, you can still receive the credit. And thousands of people do that. And it's what we call a refundable credit, which means that if the credit amount is larger than the taxes you owe, you get the refund. You get basically the money back, even if you owe no taxes or very little taxes. So a lot of people take this credit year after year. It's a really good one aimed at people who kind of have a low or medium, fixed incomes, pay rent or a mortgage. And it can be up to $1,000 that you get as essentially an income tax refund. So that's the one credit you can take on Montana Quick File, which we think would be a great thing, because a lot of people have pretty simple taxes, but they do apply for this credit. And so we hope people will do that and just get it done simply and easy and be done with it. So
they just go to your website, and it's called Montana Quick File. Right. Montana Quick File or MT Quick File, and you click on that, and it'll take you to a quick questionnaire. And then if you answer the questions that make you qualify, it'll take you to the form you start filling out online. And it really will take most people just a couple of minutes if you have your W-2 in hand, or your 1099 INT or 1099 DIV or the other forms. And if you have complicated taxes, if you lived out of state, if you are if you're claiming itemizing your deductions, there's a few other things that are a little more complicated. You can't use this tool. You have to file in one of the other ways, again, hopefully electronically. But for a lot of people, it's a lot of young people and older people are in this situation where they have a relatively simple tax situation and are taking the standard deduction and can use this tool. So a lot of people at their first job, and a lot of people who are retired, semi-retired, are in that same category. That sounds just great, Sanjay. And folks, try it. You certainly aren't going to break anything. Go to the website. We'll run that across the screen and just see if you're able to use that quick file. What a great way to get it done quickly and save money at the same time. We have lots more tax information coming up, so don't go anywhere. Stay with us.
was outside working on some equipment, nothing too strenuous. I started sweating and feeling out of breath.
When he felt pressure in his chest and aching in his arms, I knew we had to call 911.
First responders were there before we knew it. 38 minutes later, the doctors had restored the blood flow to my heart.
Now we know dialing 911 saved his life.
Your life is on the line.
This message sponsored by Mission Lifeline Montana.
I take care of my wife at home. When I found out training was available, I said, sign me up. It's made a huge difference.
When my husband was injured at work, it was life-altering. The class has taught me that it's okay to grieve, to ask for help, and to better cope as a caregiver.
My dad lives 4 hours away, and the Powerful Tools class has taught me that it's okay to ask for help. I highly recommend them.
To find out about this course for caregivers, go to powerfultoolsforcaregivers.org.
It's amazing the difference a little training can make.
Out here, we love our animals, from the wildlife to the livestock. Inside, it's the same. They're just like family. We keep them happy and healthy, most of the time. Secondhand smoke puts pets at risk for cancer, feline lymphoma, vomiting, increases the risk of tumors and lung cancer, even causes eye and skin disease. Secondhand smoke puts your pet's life at risk.
I think the most pleasant surprise when we turned 65 and signed up for Medicare Part B was finding out about our Welcome to Medicare preventive visit.
It was free, and it gave us the opportunity to visit with our doctors and establish a plan for our health going forward.
They reviewed our medical history, measured our height, weight, blood pressure, and counseled us on other risk factors.
To learn more about Medicare's free or low-cost preventive and wellness benefits, call your local SHIP counselor at 800-551-3191. I mentioned it's free, right?
Twice.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Aging Horizons. Talking about taxes today. You know, that tax season rolls around just like clockwork every year. And luckily for us, we have some great support from our Department of Revenue and some of our folks that come and guest with us frequently. Today we have Sanjay Talwani with the Department of Revenue. Hi Sanjay. And we also have Bryce Kotz with the Department of Revenue. Bryce, nice to have you. Bryce, let's talk about property tax programs that you work with. There's the PTAP, and I'll let you talk about what that means, and also the MDV, which is the Montana Disabled Veterans Program. Tell us a little bit about those.
Sure. So as you mentioned, there's the two programs that if you qualify for can help actually lower the tax bill you would receive each fall. Both programs are pretty similar. There's just a slight difference between them. The first is the Property Tax Assistance Program. And then, as you mentioned, the second is the Montana Disabled Veterans Program. So for the Property Tax Assistance Program, in order to qualify, there's a couple of requirements you have to meet. First, you have to actually own the property. You have to be listed as the owner of that property. You have to reside in that property for at least 7 months out of the year as your primary residence, and then you have to fall within the income guidelines in order to qualify. Basically the same qualifications for the Montana Disabled Veterans Program, just one added one. So again, you have to be listed as the owner of that property. You have to reside in that property for at least 7 months out of the year as your primary residence. You have to fall within the income restrictions. And then for the Montana Disabled Veterans, you also either have to be rated 100% disabled or paid at the 100% rate from the VA. Or if you're a surviving spouse, your spouse had to have been rated 100% or paid at the 100% rate when they passed. Or if they passed away as the result of a service-related disability or while on active duty, you can qualify for those.
And let's just clarify, when we're talking about ratings from the VA, it's what the men and women who are hurt or somehow challenged during their duty, military service, and they become rated with between 10% to 100%. And so the folks that are going to be eligible for the Montana Disabled Veterans Program are ones that are rated at 100% or paid at 100%, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then also, I'm wondering about, do you have to reapply for these programs every year, or is this something that just sort of rolls forward?
No, that was a change that was made going back about 4 or 5 years now. So now for both programs, you only have to apply the one time. You apply that initial time. Once you're in the program, each year we will annually verify your income by cross-referencing your Montana income tax filings and determine whether you still qualify, and if you qualify, at what level of benefit you'll qualify for. And then around May of each year, we will actually mail a decision letter out to each of the people that were enrolled in the program in the prior year, letting them know whether they've been granted and denied for that year, and if they're granted, at what level they're been granted at for that year.
So it might be a partial level, or, I mean, it could be all different?
Correct. So for the property tax assistance program, there's some graduated income brackets that you can either qualify for a 80%, 50%, or 30% reduction. And then for the Montana Disabled Veterans Program, again, some graduated income brackets where you can either qualify for 100%, 80%, 70%, or 50% reduction, depending on where your income falls within those brackets.
Okay, and just very quickly to recap, where would a person, what would they do to try to apply for either of those two programs?
Sure, there's a couple different options. Again, key to remember, the filing deadline is April 15th, just like all your other tax filings. Both application forms are available on our website, mtrevenue.gov. You can call our call center and talk to someone there. We have field offices throughout the state, about 27 of them. You can go in or call your local field office and have one of those applications mailed to you. So there's several options for you to get one of those application forms.
Super. Thanks, Bryce. Now, Sanjay, we just have a couple of minutes left, and I wanted to talk a little bit about access to assistance during this tax season, because we're thinking it might be a little less accessible than maybe in the past.
Yeah, there are a bunch of independent groups that do great work around the state, holding in-person tax help events at your public libraries, community centers, community colleges, places like that. And these are not done by the Montana Department of Revenue. They're done by independent groups, often staffed by volunteers, approved by the IRS. They do great work. But a lot of them, they're not certain exactly on the individual events if they're going to happen for various reasons, whether the volunteers are unavailable or the facility's unavailable, or so if you've relied on those in the past, if you've gone to a in-person tax help event in the past, it's worth double checking, making sure this is going to happen again. You can go to the facility that you've had it. They would know if they have something scheduled, but you can also go to our website. And we have links. We have links to some of the groups that, in turn, organize the events. So so we will have information on our site, although it's these independent groups doing it. Sure. And so it's just another reason for people to plan ahead, get their paperwork ahead, because this year it might be a little harder to get help at the last minute.
Exactly. Folks, great advice. Plan ahead and don't go anywhere. We have a whole bunch more information for you. Stay tuned.
Every 65 seconds, someone is affected with Alzheimer's or other dementias. Many become isolated at a time when help is most needed. If you or someone you love is affected, help is available, both for people with memory loss and their caregivers. Memory loss can feel frightening, but you are not alone. Call the free 24/7 Alzheimer's Association helpline, 800-272-3900, for guidance and support.
Elder abuse is a growing problem, and it's happening right here in our Montana communities. At least 1 in 10 older adults are victims of physical or emotional abuse, financial exploitation, or neglect. To get help or report elder abuse, call your local area agency on aging or Adult Protective Services at 1-844-277-9300. This is Bill. He just received his new Medicare card and is following some simple rules to protect himself from fraud. He knows to never give out his Medicare, Social Security, or bank number over the phone. And this is Nancy. She knows that to detect any problems, she always reads her Medicare summary notice or Medicare Advantage EOB to make sure the billing is correct. Both Bill and Nancy know that anything suspicious can be reported to Montana SMP at 1-800-551-3191.
Questions about Medicare and other types of insurance? Contact the State Health Insurance Assistance Program office to get answers to questions like, what is the difference between Medicare and Medicaid, and how do you decide if you need Medicare supplemental insurance? This insurance counseling program is not a sales program. It is available to provide answers to your insurance questions. For more information, call the State Health Insurance Assistance Program office at 1-800-332-2272. Hi folks, welcome back to Aging Horizons. Talking about taxes today with a couple of our great guests from the Department of Revenue. We have Sanjay Talwani. Hi Sanjay, good to have you.
Hi.
And we also have Bryce Kotz. And we're going to stay and talk to Bryce for just a sec here. Bryce, give us a recap. You had some great programs you talked about. What do folks need to do to get to take advantage of those?
Okay, sure. So for the Property Tax Assistance Program, again, just to recap, the qualifications are you have to own the property, you have to reside in that property for at least 7 months out of the year as your primary residence, and you have to fall within the income guidelines in order to qualify. And for 2021, those are going to be around $19,625 for a single filer, and $26,167 for a married or head of household filer. Now that's your federal adjusted gross income excluding losses. As long as you're filing a Montana tax return, you don't have to actually supply that with your application. We will verify that electronically. Again, you can find those applications on our website. You can call our call center, or you can call one of our local field offices. It's just important to remember that application deadline is April 15th. If you wait until the fall, when you get your tax bill to call us, we won't be able to do anything for you for that year. We would be able to get you in for the next year, but nothing for that year. Okay. And then again, for the Montana Disabled Veterans Program, again, you have to be listed as the owner. You have to reside in that property as your primary residence for at least 7 months of the year. When you apply, you need to send in a copy of your letter from the VA showing that you were rated at the 100% rate or are getting paid at that 100% rate, and then meet the income requirements. And for a single filer, that's going to be $45,373 for 2021. $52,353 for a married or head of household filer, and $39,556 is the maximum for a surviving spouse.
Super. Thanks, Bryce. Great information. Now, Sanjay, one thing that we wanted to talk about if we had some time today was the Montana Earned Tax Credit.
Earned Income Tax Credit.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. Tell us about that, because that sounds interesting.
Yeah, the Montana Earned Income Tax Credit is basically a version of the federal Earned Income Tax Credit. That tax credit has been around for a couple of decades, and millions and millions, tens of millions of people in the nation have used it. It's can produce a pretty decent credit for people. The Montana Earned Income Tax Credit, which began last year, so if you could have filed it in 2020 for your 2019 taxes, is 3% for most people. For nearly all taxpayers, it ends up being 3% of whatever your federal tax credit is. So once you've figured it out on your federal IRS forms, there's a place in the Montana forms where you take 3% of that. And so if people, hopefully people haven't overlooked it, because it's not a huge amount of money at 3%, but it's yours if you belong, if you qualify. And it's the people who particularly qualify are working folks over 25, and especially people with dependents, people who work wage jobs, get wages, get a W-2, and have 2 or 3 dependents, especially may qualify. And it's also a refundable credit. It's one of those tax credits that even if your tax liability ends up getting below zero, you get that money back as a refund, sort of like it's a credit. It belongs to you, and it can exceed the amount you owe between the federal and the state. So if people may have overlooked it in the first year, they should take a look at it. It's in your basic, most of your Montana, all of your software packages you might use to file electronically, and of course on the paper forms. So it's just something people should make sure they don't miss if they qualify for it.
Right. I think, especially since it's fairly new, I'm glad that we talked about it a little bit extra today, Sanjay. And, I guess I want to go back to your plan ahead. And try to plan ahead this year, because let's face it, it's been a weird year and everybody's life has changed dramatically. So I would say, what do you think of people just going to Montana Quick File and checking it out?
That's a great place to start. If your taxes are a little more complicated, you'll find out quickly. Again, we always encourage people to file electronically. If you don't qualify for Montana Quick File, there are, of course, many software packages available. Sure. There are linked on our site. Some of them are free or low cost for certain income levels. And so, again, if you haven't used computers before for very many things, if you don't feel comfortable with filing electronically, I know a lot of us, I don't feel it's real unless I have it in pen and ink write in my hand and put it in the mail. But the truth is kind of the opposite, is that it's electronic that is more secure, more quick, less likely to have some error in it, and less likely, frankly, to be affected by possible, a public health closure if people have to leave offices or something like that. Paper returns require human beings in offices holding them to process, much more than the electronic version. And so our data also just shows that on average, the same return, if you file it electronically or if you file it on paper, you're more likely to get your refund quickly on papers. So we encourage people, to start reaching out now. If you're not comfortable with computers, don't feel good about this whole doing it online. We really encourage people to find people, family and friends who can, end up spending 15 minutes with you and doing it online. And I think once people go online, they don't go back. They find, hey, this is easier than paper. And so this year more than ever is a good time to take that step. And hopefully, a lot of it with the Quick File, that'll make it real easy for a lot of people.
Great. Well, Sanjay, Bryce, so great to have you both today. You always bring such great information. Thanks for being with us. And folks, it's coming around, and it doesn't have to be hard. You can just go take a look at that Montana Quick File to start, and maybe you'll be able to just quickly get done in 15 minutes. For Aging Horizons, I'm Kimmy Everman.
Special thanks to the Department of Public Health and Human Services for their continued support. Hosts on Aging Horizons are program specialists at the Montana Office on Aging. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions. For more information about Aging Horizons, call the Department of Public Health and Human Services toll-free at 800-332-2272.